Hey, yo, it's me, Pops Van Marmalade, and you're watching the Comics-Related Madness Network. Uh-huh. So come get some. CromCon. CromCon.
If you're a fan of comic books and comic book conventions, Daytona Beach Comic Con needs to be on your list of must-attend events. It's a show that actually focuses on comic books. Imagine that! This year's event is happening on Saturday, September the 6th, and Sunday, September the 7th. Silverline creators will be there, so we'll see you at the show. There's a new convention in town, and it's sure to be mega fun without the mega expense. Comics, toys, collectibles, pop culture. ShadowCon, Saturday, February 1st, 2025 in Orlando, Florida. Silverline creators will be there, so we'll see you at the show. If you find yourself in the Orlando area, and let's be honest, doesn't everyone come to Orlando for the House of Mouse? Head over to Coliseum of Comics to get your comic book fix. Be sure to check out their location on East Colonial Drive, where they carry a wide selection of independent comics, including Silverline books. Stop by and don't forget to tell them Silverline sent you. Hey, if you're an independent comic creator looking to get your comic printed, look no further than Kablam Digital Printing. They print our comics and do a fantastic job. They can even print special edition covers. When you reach out to them, be sure to tell them Silverline sent you.
Hi, this is Tim TK, host of That Silverline Show on Tuesday. Join us at 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific every Tuesday night as we discuss pop culture and the joys of making comics.
Hi, I'm Barb Kilber, co-host of Silverline's Wednesday Wham. Join us each Wednesday night as we discuss comics, literature, movies, and anything else that may catch our attention.
I'm Roland Mann, and I host Silverline's Silver Sunday. Join me every Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern as we make mine Silverline. Where's Tom?
What'd you do with Tom?
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Silverline Silver Sunday on this March the 16th. I'm your host, Admiral Man, and I'm excited to have tonight's discussion because I think it's going to be fun. I am joined, as always, by that man in the mask guy, Mr. Mike W. Belcher.
Good evening, afternoon, whatever your time zone may be.
Who's got that man in the mask IP to protect.
Exactly.
He does. And also joined by Mr. Tom Mason, who is not a lawyer, by the way.
Not a lawyer. I only play. I'm an internet lawyer, just like I'm an internet doctor. So if you have,
That's right. What is it? I'm not a lawyer, but I did sleep in a
Holiday Inn Express last
Holiday
night.
Inn Express. Yeah, I did sleep in a Holiday Inn Express last night, right? So we miss Tommy and Roberta. They cannot make it tonight, so we'll probably talk about them since they're not here.
Are they out protecting their IP? Because if they're not, they have no excuse.
I think Tommy's probably playing.
Is he going to Disneyland again?
Probably. That's what he's supporting someone else's IP.
Yeah.
Yes, he is the meanest.
Who stole IP from other people on top of that?
That's right. The meanest IP there is.
They're like the NFL of lawyers.
All right, so I got it shared on Facebook and I got it shared on Twitter. So all right, we're good to go. News. Any news? I don't have any news. We are Wolf Hunter 2 should be at the printer this week. So hopefully about 2 weeks we'll see that to go out.
And that's the one that I proofread, right?
Yes.
That's a dynamite issue.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah. I think so. Tim TK has written a fun story. Of course, the art is done by penciler Ray Fujiwara, and inked by Salvador Raga, colored
and-
by Martin Mertonen,
And letters by
and letters by Mr.
Aye.
Mike W. Belcher over there. Mike's like, oh, wait a minute. I'm hearing that there's a couple of corrections coming my way. Oh, no.
I did. I'm sorry.
Yes, it's okay.
I proved
Hey,
Mike's
don't
like,
worry.
it's part of the job.
the thing is, though, they're all Roland's fault because Roland should have caught it.
This is just true. That's
Hey, there were a few that I thought were kind of sketchy, so I was hoping somebody would catch it because I won't officially change it until the editors
Yeah.
change it.
Right. Well,
yeah.
and the funny thing about that stuff is sometimes, like I think Roland will vouch for this on my behalf. Sometimes I don't know it's wrong until I see it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then I see how wrong it is, how it doesn't fit in the space I wanted to, or how I just screwed up the art somehow
Yeah.
by wanting the big caption to cover up the art, which is bad. And it's just like, then Roland and I always had that discussion of like, yeah, I got to rewrite this.
Well, and I will say this. This is one of the reasons that I, over the years, became a fan and an advocate of the Marvel method because when you have the artwork in front of you as the writer and you still cover up artwork, that's horrible. That's no, you
Yeah,
should never do that.
Also, if you get the balloons in the wrong, if you get the speaking part in the wrong place
Yes.
after you've seen the art, and you send it to the letter, and the letter has to do some sort of gymnastics with the pointer, it's like
Yeah.
you've ruined everything. You've made
Yes.
you've made you've ruined the art, and you've made the letterer's job terrible, and you've made the reader go, "What am I even looking at?"
Yeah, what the heck? Hey, there's a name we haven't seen in a while. Royal Airships. What's going on, Rory?
Hey,
Good
Rory.
of you to see. Good of you. Good to see you here.
You know, when it comes to lettering, I've gotten to the point when someone, let's just say, I love it when they load up a quarter, panel of
Right.
dialogue. It's just so crunchy you can't even hardly see the artwork.
Yeah.
I've gotten to the point where I don't even try. I'm like, okay, if you guys want
Yeah.
this much dialogue in this panel, I'm going to show you what it looks like.
Right.
This much panel. I mean, I'm sorry. I'm not, you just used a half page panel and had 3 words in it, but you loaded this one up with 60 words.
So here's the
So-
question then, and tell me if I'm being a jackass. It's when you do that, which I agree with,
Yeah.
it's like in the old days you'd have to ink it,
Yeah.
and you'd have to use a ton of whiteout to sort of fix it. And is it easier to sort of make your point now that it's digital?
Oh, heck yeah.
Yeah.
Like I said, I know if they push back or get crappy about it, I typically have the fix off the page. What I would, how I would normally
Yeah.
fix it.
Yeah.
So when they gripe, I can just put it back over there. But, like I said, if I'm in a really kind of like, okay, you've done this to me like 1,000 places in this thing.
Right.
Right.
Like you had plenty of room in this other panel to do all this dialogue, but
Yeah.
you chose this little Watchmen third of a page or
Right.
less than or eighth of a page to do all this dialogue, and you see maybe the guy's eyes.
Right.
If I was actually leave it the way that you have it. So I usually do it right, and then I'll pull off the page, and then I'll just do it. It's like,
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and I chalk that up a lot of times just to write, and I blame the writer
Oh
wholly.
yeah, no, it's
for
totally.
this. Yeah.
Yeah.
I accept full responsibility.
Yeah. Well, I don't remember Tom doing that, but I mean, inexperienced writers, you can see that a lot, right? You see these big full panels, and you're going, wait, you got a panel on before that and a panel after that had 3 words in them a piece, and you put 80 words in this one panel? No.
One of the things that made me a better writer was being an editor first.
Yeah.
And then I got to see other mistakes people were making. And I would sit there and go, well, I'm not doing that. I'll never make that mistake. Which, of course, I'll still do. But at least I understood the rule because I was seeing it.
And you become aware of it.
Yeah. And then the more you do it, the more it becomes intuitive. Like, okay, well, the person speaking first has to be drawn on the left side of the panel.
Yep.
And there's you can't figure that out any other way.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's tricks too. Like if you're writing full script, there's tricks to doing it because, we don't like the idea of, okay, this character is on the left and this character is on the right. We don't tend to do that in scripts. You just say, John is talking to Bob, right?
Right.
But there's tricks that you can mentally. John is mentioned first
So
in
he
the
should be drawn
sentence.
first.
So he should be drawn first, right? So that
And
that also gets that in the artist's mind. Okay, John is speaking to Bob, so John should be drawn first.
And the other thing you don't want to do is you don't want to have like 3 pages of action where there's no dialogue or no captions,
Gosh.
and then everything is crammed into like 3 panels at the end of the fight scene. It's like, no. Figure out a way to spread that up, because you can help the artist, you can help the reader pace the fight scene in their head if you have a mix of really great dynamic art with the words, and you can sort of, and the letterer that can then pace it properly in the page so that everything works together, and it's not like a horse race. It's more like that you've set the tone for reading a comic.
Yeah, because if you're nice to your letter will put your captions and your balloons in the sections of the art that will draw more attention.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that actually helps along the pacing, because if you want that caption, up on the left-hand corner just to be, here's a caption, or do you want it to flow along with maybe somebody's punch or with somebody's movement? That helps maybe, or maybe there's something on the panel that's kind of subliminal and you want to draw somebody's attention to it. So I said, be nice to your letter, because your letter is going to help, enhance your story.
And that's the thing too. The letterer is like the unsung hero of the comics, because if they do, no matter how great their job is, you almost never notice it.
Yeah.
But when the lettering is terrible, it's like one of the first things you see when you turn the page is like, I don't even know what I'm looking at.
Yeah. Well, a lot of my students are film students, and I tell them, and they get this pretty quickly. It's like, if you ever watch a film that has a bad sound, it doesn't matter how beautiful the film is. If the sound is terrible, you're looking at it going, this is horrible. This is horrible. Even if it's shot beautifully, it's a terrible film.
And if all the captions are at the bottom, I don't know who's talking.
That's right. Yeah. So I got two great illustrations for this. One of them I tried to Google real quick and I couldn't find. But Frank Miller wrote an introduction into one of the Bone trade paperbacks.
Okay.
In which he, I don't remember which one it was. Like I said, I tried to Google it real fast. I have it on my work computer, and it's part of what we talk about. But one of the things he said, he was talking up Jeff Smith, blah 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 blah. But then he got to talking about problems in modern comics, and one of the things that he mentioned, and keep in mind this is probably early 2000s or 1990s, is that writers have a tendency to just pile the words on, right? Just unnecessary words that you don't need, that you can clearly see the illustration there. And he went, artists have the opposite when left alone. They have the opposite problem in that they draw each tedious little action, and that it's like you don't need that, because you're reminded that comics aren't film. But one of the things he says is that as the writer, you need to find a way to slow the reader down.
Yeah. And
this is what I always tell the students, because they'll want to have like you say, like a 2-page fight scene with no words. And I'm like, well, here's the problem with that. If I'm the reader, I look at it like this. Oh, fight scene. Click. I turn the page, right? Yeah. Just like that. And so words slow the reader down. Now, the second illustration comes from our very own Peter Clinton. And he, when we were doing the first issue of Silverline Team Up, he said something about the words. He goes, no, I want words in there because I want the readers to look at my artwork. Right. So because if there's no words there, they're only going to glance at the page and flip through too quick, and they won't look at his art. Right. But if I have strategically done a good job and given you some words to slow you down, then you're looking at the artwork while you're reading that text.
Yeah. Also, I think if you look at movies and TV shows, whenever there's a fight scene or a car chase or whatever, it's not just a fight scene or a car chase. They're character moments, and little bits of character are revealed. Like if there was a piece that the hero picked up earlier in the movie, and he's going to use it to get out of that jam, it's already been placed, like Chekhov's gun or whatever.
Right.
And how the hero escapes from the villain or doesn't, that reveals the hero's character. Yeah. And so you want to have more than just an action scene. Is not just action. Action is character moments or character development.
Should be.
And it should be. And it should also move the story forward so that the fight scene or the car chase has a purpose that gets the character to the next thing.
Yes.
And so you can't just have a pretty fight.
Yeah, you've got to have a reason for the fight. You
Right.
know, you have to have a reason that you're walking the reader through it. Like, why is that? Because it allows you also, it's like, putting words on the page can also help you with your exposition. And so, you can fill in the blanks where you're not going to have to waste that someplace else while the reader is kind of relaxing, watching the fight scene.
Right.
Yeah.
You can, like I said, reveal little bits of, it's like a couple of pages ago on Man in the Mask, it was a fight between the Colonel and the War Reaper. And he sucker punches the War Reaper. So I wanted to explain why was his hero sucker punching the villain. Well, he's stronger and he's vicious, and I also wanted to make sure I put in the captions that the Colonel's lost more than he's won, and so this is a desperate situation. And so you pace that through the fight, and you're not boring the reader with just they're not becoming observers. You're telling them a bit of history that I'm never going to show. I just need that in their minds.
Because when we see a character like Reacher on screen in a fight scene, we want to know what the stakes are.
Yeah.
And we want to know what happens if he wins and what happens if he loses.
Yeah.
And so that's what you do with anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
Yeah. So I was just reading the comments off to the side and laughing.
Yeah, I know. So Rory says that you're helping me procrastinate on a paper due Tuesday. You've got all day tomorrow to do that, Rory.
Seriously, man. Plus you got the extra hour of daylight.
That's right.
Get to it.
Really, you're kidding, said. I just got here. Can you give some advice on the best way to protect an IP?
Hey, he's got Peabody as his avatar, so
Yes,
we're just his Sherman at the moment.
So before we get there, which is our topic for tonight, one more bit of news. Next week we are going to be launching this. This show will be our launch party for Cat and Mouse Vipers #1. So, and I think hopefully Roberta will be able to hear. She colored it. And I have asked Jose, who's the inker, and Angelo, who's the penciler. I've asked them both to pop up.
Cool.
And we'll have us a launch party next week. That's next Sunday. So that's the only news that I've got. David Gutierrez says nice. As always, David, thanks for hanging out with us. Okay, so yes, really, you're kidding. It is about protecting your IP. So I'm gonna kick it off here. You guys feel free to jump in. I don't have I don't have an outline. I would have sent it to you if I did. But one of the things as creators, we have a tendency, we make stuff and then we worry that someone is going to steal it. That is probably one of the things I hear more frequently in school than I hear anywhere else. It's like, I've created this thing, someone's going to steal it. Now, between me and you and the whoever's listening here, probably not going to happen, right?
Not.
The chances of that is just not likely. But let's protect yourself. One of the first ways I'm going to mention, how do you protect yourself? Get your work in print. Get it in print, right? So you can say, look, here, this is me. This is not me. This is Ron Fortier, of course. This is me. I've got this in print. It exists. You'll want to put a date on it, right? So that you can say, look, this was printed in, I don't have the right glasses on to see it. 2025, right? You want to put the date on that. I know that these have dates. I'm not sure I can read these either. July 2024, right? There it is. You can see it, right? That'll help. That's one thing. That's my first contribution. You guys go next.
You're just wrong.
Web pages,
Web pages. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. I mean, there's a date when you put something online. There's something that traces back, and as far as an argument, it's web publishing. It's just another form. It's in print, but you can also say, here's your web page. This is where I may only be doing a webtoon or a web comic, but here it is, and there's a date, there's a timestamp.
So before we get too deep, we should probably, for those who aren't quite sure, what IP stands for. And IP stands for intellectual property.
Yes.
Some of you might be, how can I protect my copyright? How can I protect my
The thing you create.
Yes, the thing you create. Intellectual property is the thing that you create. Is the thing that you own.
Well, now can we go deep?
Go deep.
All right. So here's the thing.
Do I
There's
need
a
my
lot of
wingers?
there's a lot of stuff about protecting your IP or protecting your copyrights that is wrong.
Yeah.
And a lot of people will say, "Well, just mail it to yourself."
Yeah.
That doesn't work. And people will say, "Well, just email it to yourself because it'll be dated." That doesn't work.
Yeah.
The only thing that works that is actually usable in court is a copyright.
Yeah.
And so you can copyright anything. I copyright my scripts. Like I don't copyright a script when I write for somebody else's TV show, but I
you don't own it
because I don't own it. It's not mine.
Right. Yeah.
But for something that I create that I want to own, and people will say, well, yes, you've already created it, so therefore it's owned the day you created it. It's like, well, yeah, but I can't prove it until it's registered with the copyright office. So I spend the money, I send it to the copyright office. And I've copyrighted scripts, screenplays, book proposals, outlines, one paragraph ideas, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
And that's before I send it out, like before I show it to
anybody,
a potential buyer. Like I'll show it to my friends of mine who are part of my trusted circle because we do that all the time. Yep. And they'll tell me what's wrong with it. But then when I fix it and I get it the way everybody likes it and I like it, I copyright it.
Right.
And then it's mine.
Yeah.
Until I sell the copyright to somebody who will give me money, and then they will own the copyright.
Right.
And the thing about
for those of you paying attention, that is a future topic is when to sell out.
Yeah, when to sell out, when to make some money.
Yeah.
And the thing is that you don't. It's not really protecting your copyright or protecting your IP because somebody could still steal it even if you own the copyright, even if you have the proof, whatever, because anybody can do anything.
Yeah.
And there are no copyright police. The copyright police is the court system. So you would have to hire a lawyer, go to court and prove the date of your creation and, prove that they stole it and blah, blah, blah. And so that's, so that's really what you do. And you go, because once you have the copyright, you can pretty much do anything and get it into print is obviously the next stage.
Yeah.
But some people don't have the resources or the money or the artist or the writer to help them make the comic. So the copyright office is there for you.
Yeah. Now, do you have a certain form, Tom, that you fill out?
There is. You can go to there's the copyright office has a website. Okay. And you can do it online, and it's done the day that you do it.
Do you happen to know that? I'm gonna try to pull it up. Copyright office.
It's probably copyright.gov or something, but it's
probably.
We're having trouble finding that site. I'm trying.
I should have done more homework.
That's okay. Oh, here we go.
But and so I will sidetrack with a small story.
All right, do that.
I co-created a TV show with my partner Dan Danko about Leonardo da Vinci as a boy who was basically using his prototype inventions to fight crime in Renaissance Florence.
Cool.
And it got picked up by a studio in London and was picked up further by the BBC for a green light. They shot 2 seasons of it. They announced it in the trade when it started production, and immediately some guy called them up and said that Dan and I had ripped him off.
Oh no.
He said that a year earlier he had gone to this convention in France where people pitch TV shows called MIP in Cannes, and that Dan and I had obviously seen it. We had pitched it to the producers and stolen his idea. And so the producers called us up in a panic and said, "What?
Is this true?" Yeah.
Yeah. And so because they were all huffy and puffy. And then we said, "Well, when is the convention in Cannes where he said that we went to, which we didn't go to the convention?"
Right.
And when did he see it? He said, "Well, it was exactly a year ago." And so we went looking at our records, and it turns out that we had done the Leonardo thing as a book proposal a year prior to that. So we had a book proposal, which was an outline of the book, 4 or 5 written chapters, a description of the series that had all been copyrighted, and a year before he even went to the convention with his idea. So we were a year ahead of him.
Yeah.
And we sent everything over to the producers and said, here's the thing, and here's the copyright certificate, and here's the date with the time step on it for when we registered it. So, and here's all the rejection slips we got from the book publishers who didn't want to buy it, which are still dated a year before he publicly revealed it. So I'm a big fan of the paper.
Yeah.
And creating the trail.
So here's the page here, Tom.
There we go.
If someone's going here for the first time, where do they go? Registration?
Yeah.
And then register work?
Yep.
Register portal? All right. I'm clicking on these as we go. I have a big white screen right now, but it's thinking up here. Oh, yeah, you can see it, right? You can see it thinking there. Well, so as that's thinking here, let's see. Let me get a couple of these questions here.
All right.
Really, you're kidding says, do you register copyrights?
Yeah.
That's
it's what the process is called.
Yeah.
You've created something, and you own it, and you want to own it, so you have to register the copyright. Register your copyright.
You can see even this right here is called copyright.gov/registration.
Yeah.
It's thinking. I don't know why it's thinking so hard there.
Maybe a lot of people just have a lot of ideas to that, and they're registering.
I guess so. That's right. We've caused the rush. We've crashed the government website.
Oh, no. David A. Gutierrez says, Tom, do you WGA register? Now,
No, go ahead.
For those who don't know WGA, if I'm not mistaken, this is Writers Guild of America, right?
Yes. So Writers Guild of America registration is only good for 5 years, and then you have to pay again to renew it.
Okay.
The guild registration does not hold up in court. Only the copyright notice does. So if you want to waste your money and have, go ahead and register it. And if you're not a WGA member anyway, they're not going to defend you because you're not a member. So there's no reason to use the WGA because the Copyright Office exists.
My page it doesn't want to it stopped, and now I'm trying to refresh, but it doesn't want to load for some reason. I'll try this one more time here. Really, you're just kidding. We may need a little bit more information on this question here. It says, do you have to copyright each interval page or the entire work at once?
No.
Now, I'm assuming you might be asking about art here. Actually, you know what? It doesn't really matter whether you're asking about art or whether you're asking about the story. The answer's not going to change.
Yeah. So you register the whole thing as a work,
right?
Not as an individual page.
Yeah.
So if it's a script, you do it as a whole script. If it's an outline, you do it as the outline. You don't do individual pages. Even if it's comic art, you don't register one page at a time because it's money per page, and it's just foolish. No one's going to steal a page.
No, they're not. And the other thing is, here we go.
Yeah, the registration portal.
Yep, there we go. So this is where you would go if you're trying to do that. And again, it's just copyright.gov/registration.
Yep.
And this will get you right there. What's the Tom? Do you know the cost off the top of your head?
No, it used to be like $75.
Okay.
Which really is money. I mean, you don't want to copyright every single thing that you create.
Yeah.
But if it's something that you're going to pass around and looking to sell and looking to acquire and looking for whatever, then you want to spend the money.
Well, the other thing that you don't want to do, and correct me if you guys disagree with me, is you don't want to sit there and create a dozen characters and say this is going to be my new team, right?
No.
And then copyright each character, right?
No. Because the thing is, if you ever have to go before a judge, it's just going to look like nonsense. You really want it to make it look as professional as possible, so that if it gets ripped off and you end up going to court, the lawyer and the judge don't look at you like you went to high school.
Yeah, it's like why are you sending me all these characters from your D&D game?
Right. Yeah,
because that's what it looks like, right?
It does. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, you want it to look like a professional proposal.
Yeah. Jackson said, refresh, Roland. I did.
It did.
Rory says, I had the idea for a video game where Shakespeare falls asleep and enters into dreams of his own stories and has to correct all the things that go wrong. I figured only English and lit majors would get it.
Wait, well, here's the thing. Nobody buys video games from the outside. Video games
They're all developed in-house, right?
They're all developed in-house.
Yeah.
And they come from developers and coders, guys who are actually making games, not just making ideas.
Yeah.
Where writers get involved in a video game is sort of towards the end, where you might get called, like I get called in to polish dialogue on cutscenes and to give a fresh set of eyes to some of the stuff. I don't get called in to create video games. No one does. You get it. The guy, there's like 10 people in a room creating a video game.
Right.
Yeah.
And they're in there pitching ideas like every second of the day.
Right.
Wouldn't it be cool if?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's my whole life. Wouldn't it be cool if this happened? Right. This is a good question here. David A. Scooter says, what about something as common that has a common name like cat and mouse? What do you present to show the idea is unique if the title is not?
Change the title.
What's that?
Change the title.
You can't change the title, yeah.
Yeah.
But I think one of the things you can do, David, is obviously, what is it? It's name and likeness, right? That's what it's called?
Name and likeness.
Name and likeness is that the logo that you create for it has to have direct bearing on the thing that you're doing.
Yeah.
So, for instance, like there's somebody else out there I noticed about a year ago with a comic called Cat and Mouse. It is nothing like my Cat and Mouse, right? It's literally a Tom and Jerry kind of thing, which a lot of people sometimes think my Cat and Mouse is about, oh, like Tom and Jerry. I'm like, oh, no, nothing like Tom and Jerry. But this one is, and his logo is different than mine. You're not going to get, if you see it, you're not going to get it confused with mine.
There won't be confusion in the marketplace.
No.
And also you can see that same kind of thing in a video game where there's a cat and mouse video game, but it's closer to Tom and Jerry, because when people think of cat and mouse in the general marketplace, they think of
Tom
Itchy and Scratchy or Tom and Jerry or Herman and Catnip.
Yeah. Or who?
Herman and Catnip. They were Terry Toons characters in the 1940s.
Oh, okay. I'm like, wait, I don't know that one.
I was struggling to come up with a third set of cat and mouse characters, and I went back to the old timey.
So one of the things too is of course, Tom, you talked about it at the very beginning, and I know this is something that I did way back in the 80s, because it's what I thought. When you come up with an idea, you put it in an envelope and you register mail it to yourself, right?
And don't open it until you
open it. Yeah, you have a separate copy that's opened that you can show your lawyer. Say, this is what's in this sealed envelope that has a stamp with a date on it and everything. And
fool,
it's all official. Postal Service.
That's right. Yeah. It's a government agency.
It's a government agency. I'm assuming it's still called that. It's called the poor man's copyright.
It is.
And
it doesn't protect you.
I was going to say, I've never known anyone to use it. I've never known anyone to have to use it. I've never known anyone that's tried to use it and failed. I've never known anyone that's tried to use it and succeeded. So I just know that it exists. And certainly, and I know in the 80s that that's what they were pushing for writers to do.
Yeah, because I think all writers imagine that there's going to be like that scene in Matlock or Perry Mason where you hold up the envelope and said, I'm going to rip this envelope open in front of the court and prove that mine was created a year before yours. And then there's that dramatic thing where Raymond Burr rips open the top of it and says, see, mine was first, and you were all witnesses. It's like, it doesn't happen that way.
Yeah.
Court is actually very boring, and it's very procedural, and it's just like, do you have the copyright? Yes. And did they steal it? Yes. And then boom, you're done.
But if no one has the copyright, if no one has gone through official channels, how do you do that?
You mean, how do you get it?
How's it proven? Yeah,
you don't.
Yeah. How do you protect your work? Yeah,
you can't. You have the reason the way to protect your work is to go through a government agency that's recognized by the court system. Everything else doesn't work. No matter what other ideas you hear on the internet, or no it's like medical advice from the internet. It's like, what you should do. It's like, no, you should register your work with the Copyright Office because that's why the Copyright Office exists.
Yeah.
And even if you live in a foreign land that has loosey-goosey copyright stuff and isn't part of the Berne Convention or whatever, if you're planning on selling your work to a U.S. market, you should still register with the U.S. even if you live in, the Sahara Desert or China or Germany or, wherever. You should still register it in the U.S. because the U.S. has the big copyright power.
Yeah.
And we also should say that trademarks and copyrights are two different things.
That's
a lot of people think they're the same thing, and they're definitely not.
No.
The copyright is the concept, the idea, the work. The trademark is it's the execution. But the trademark is what it goes by, the name of it, the how is it marketed, how is it right down to this is the logo, this is the design of the logo. The logo is going to be used on comic books, on posters. I mean, the trademark is just as it's a little more dense than the copyright law.
Yes.
Yeah.
Also, getting a traditional registered copyright getting a traditional registered trademark is very expensive.
Yeah.
Very. Yeah.
A couple thousand bucks. So you got to be really serious about your stuff.
Yeah. You have to have it in actuality. I think 3 times before you're even able to register it. You have to have it. It has to be shown on 3 different things to, I guess, be serious.
And they're trademark categories too. You can register it for like linens and bed sheets or toys or video games or whatever.
What purpose?
And each category is worth a money. So
yes, So you can't just do this one trademark encompasses everything. You know.
It's really what you should do, because people are broke and they don't want to, and not everything is going to be a hit, is like get the copyright first, publish your comic book. If it starts to take off and gets really successful and you have the money left over,
get the trademark.
Then get the trademark.
Yeah, because it goes back to the cat and mouse thing about how many different things. It's like Man in the Mask it's a very common term in particular genres.
Right.
And so that's the reason officially my book is Mike Belcher's Man in the Mask.
Right.
It shows my ownership right off the top, but it's also part of the logo. It's actually part of,
Also, the great thing is when Hollywood buys your property from you and makes it into a video game, they can't cut your name out of the logo because your name is the logo.
Exactly.
That's why it's Tom Mason's Dinosaurs for Hire, by the way. Because somebody tried to take my name off of it, and I said, no, I know a guy who can make me a logo. So
I actually remember that story. Let's see here. Hyper says, like and subscribe, kids. Thank you, Hyper. We can always depend on you. Hyper is right, folks. Wherever you are listening to us, please like, subscribe, follow, thumbs up, heart, whatever the platform is that you're on. Please give us a like and consider. Go ahead.
And try to learn how to make this thing.
Yeah, I know.
I can't do it.
And share.
Yeah, share
is the better thing. Comment is better. Sharing is second better.
Yeah, that's right. David H. Gutierrez says, do you suggest incorporating, especially if you're hoping to sell off the IP?
So no, because it's 2 different things. If you incorporate a company, we'll do it backwards. I'll answer the second question first. If you're hoping to sell off the IP, let's say it's Sony Pictures calls and they want to buy your IP, they're really just buying the copyright off you,
right,
or the trademark.
Because once they own it, they can do whatever they want to with it.
Right, because it's theirs now, and it's as if they created it, and they only owe you whatever you negotiate.
Right.
In perpetuity. Incorporating is if you want to make a company, let's say, and you want to have money pass through the company so that the company then pays you, and that way it's a better tax benefit.
Yeah.
So you don't want to incorporate just because you've made a comic.
Right.
It's because incorporating doesn't protect you and it doesn't help you sell the IP.
Now, if you want to make a comic company, that's a different story. If
Yeah.
if you're trying to a comic company, like any business, you would want to protect yourself tax wise
Yes.
or whatever, but it doesn't do anything for the comic. There's
Right.
just there's nothing to it. I mean, it's just a business thing.
Right. And so in that case, you want to get an accountant, like Mike said, and you want to set up a corporation to publish your comic to protect you, so that if somebody sues you over the comic because you said or did something that they don't like, you don't lose your house.
Yeah.
Actually, this is a good. Next question is a good one, and Benjamin, I hope you hang around for the answer because it might surprise you. I think Benjamin Soto says, "I discovered someone has titled their comic the same as mine. Am I allowed to sue them for everything they're worth? And why is the answer yes?"
The answer is no.
The answer is actually not yes. The answer is no.
Yeah.
Yeah. You obviously can't create your own Batman and use the Batman name, and you can't create your own Man in the Mask, and you can't create your own Cat in the Mouse superhero. But you also can't sue if somebody else is using a comic that you created because they're there first. Otherwise, what did you create? You created a comic that
So hold on.
from a
I
pre-existing
think the
name.
question. he said, "LOL, good info, guys." So he was baiting us there.
I
So
know.
I think the question though. Let's pop this back up here. I think the question is, okay. It doesn't say for sure in the question, but I interpreted from the question that he has a comic already.
Right.
And someone else is doing one that
Okay.
has that same. So his was there first.
Then he has. I mean, first of all, you have to prove that there's confusion in the marketplace,
Yeah,
Confusion.
and
Well,
that's hard to do.
Yeah, and this goes back to I'm not sure we said it. We used to have this conversation at Malibu Summit. Is that you can't copyright a name like
Yes.
we could do Spider-Man if we wanted to, and if we wanted to fight against Disney, which we don't.
Right. You could do the Spider-Man, and it's a different looking character.
As long as it's nothing like Marvel Spider-Man, and the logo doesn't look like, because it goes back to the confusion in the marketplace.
And it's not how you sell it.
Right. If we're not, if you like Marvel Spider-Man, you're gonna like our Spider-Man. I was like, whoa. Yeah. If it can't be anything like it, right? It can't look like it. It can't look like it, smell like it, talk like it, right?
Yeah, but if you're creating a comic book that's called The Spider-Man and it doesn't look anything like Spider-Man, you're still deliberately creating some kind of confusion in the marketplace because you want some kind of spillover.
Yeah.
Well, it's the Shazam Captain Marvel situation.
Yes.
The Shazam Captain Marvel was decades before the Marvel Captain Marvel, but DC had let that trademark lapse.
Yeah.
And so Stan ran to the trademark and trademarked Captain Marvel for Marvel, and they won't let it go. And so
because it's their company name.
It's the company name. It makes sense. And DC, to their fault, they dropped the ball. And so now anything that the Shazam Captain Marvel appears in, it has to be Shazam because that's the only thing that makes it unique in the marketplace.
Yeah.
Even though he doesn't look a thing like the Kree Captain Marvel, not a thing.
No.
It's marketability, it's confusion in the marketplace. And,
And
it's a long laundry list. Yeah.
And to answer the second part of the question is, it's fun to say, "Oh, I'm going to sue this guy. I'm going to sue this. I'm going to blah blah." It's like, well, here's the thing: a decent lawyer costs $300 an hour, and you need $10,000 basically as a retainer in order to sign a lawyer who'd be willing to take your case, who's any good, and you would use up that $10,000 fairly quickly, and you'd probably need another $10,000 before you got to court. So suing somebody, again, it's like TV. It's this grand gesture. I'll sue you.
Right.
It's like, well, no, you're not going to spend that money because when you go down the rabbit hole of how much that actually costs,
right,
and how long that process takes,
and this is where the big companies have the advantage because they're like, hey, look, we've got the money. If you really want to tangle it up with us, okay, come on,
And we've got lawyers just sitting around.
That's right, just waiting to take you on, kid.
We pay them weekly, and they're not even a retainer. They're on staff, they're just hanging out. They're looking for you.
I always love it on the internet when some character falls into the public domain.
Oh,
I mean, and people go nuts thinking, oh, I can go do my own version of it. It's like, no, you can't. You think you can. And, it's like Captain Marvel, like we were just saying, Captain Marvel, Shazam. The very first, Wiz Comics is in public domain. And by virtue, you could reprint it and you can take elements of it and make your own. I don't know why you'd want to, because quite honestly, I'm not wired that way. I'd rather just make my own stuff. But anyway, there's people out there that just love public domain characters.
Yeah.
And so they think that's a license to allow them to do a new version of Captain Marvel. It's like, no, that's not what that means.
Right.
It's a very technical thing, because even if you were to go out and say, well, I only use the elements out of Wiz Comics #1 that's in public domain. So it's like, no, DC has a million lawyers that will tell you why you're wrong.
Right.
And so it's just the way it cuts. I mean, in all legalities, you can reprint that issue as a publisher. You can put it in some kind of, anthology that doesn't have it on the cover or whatever, because you're legally able to, because it is a public domain thing. But you can't make new stuff off of it, because
And the thing is, if you're using a public domain character and you create, you recreate your new thing with it, no studio or TV series or whomever is going to want it, because it's the chain of title is weird.
Yeah,
it's not clean, and it's not something that you came up with. You basically took somebody else's work and repurposed it.
Yeah.
Yep. And I think we've all seen. And we've talked about this on the show a 1,000 times, or at least I have, is that the best stuff, the stuff we all like, is the stuff that came from nothing, basically. It came out of, like, Dave Sim's Cerebus, Love and Rockets, Jeff Smith's Bone. It's not the derivative stuff that sticks in our heads. And so, if you want to play around with public domain characters and make some weird Mickey Mouse thing, go ahead. But it doesn't. It's not going to be as creatively fulfilling as having your own thing.
No. Yeah.
No, I mean,
and we're not going to respond to it.
Winnie the Pooh has been all the rage.
I'm sorry.
No, I just said Winnie the Pooh has been all the rage.
Yeah, Winnie the Pooh right now. But if you go out there and make a new Black Terror, well, there's 1,000 guys behind you that just made a new Black Terror too.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing unique about it. That's just the way I view public domain.
No, I think it was cool. I think Bo Smith did one with
back in the 80s.
Back in the 80s, which was like the first time the Black Terror had sort of been repurposed. That to me was cool, because they did something interesting in it, but they don't pursue it. It was the thing that they did and they wanted to do. And then Bo went on to create like 1,000 other things.
Right.
And, Black Terror just became a project.
Look here, Thomas Floramonte says, howdy guys. Sorry I couldn't make it. Indie Planet has 2,000 plus books on it. Guess how many have the same name? A bunch. There are 3 or 4 divinities.
Right.
Yeah. So how do you handle that?
Well, Tom Mason's Bone and Tom Mason's Cerebus is going to come out in 2026. I think the
common names, he says.
Yeah, to me, it's more like, since I'm tangentially involved in the industry, I sort of know what stuff is being published.
Right.
And if I come up with a title, this is my magnum opus, this is the title I've got to have, and I go to the comic book store and I see 3 books that already have the same name, it's like, I don't get mad and say, I'm going to do this anyway. It's more like, okay, this is my challenge. What's my next name?
Yeah.
What can I do to make myself different?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to come up with a comic called The Man Without a Mask.
Yeah.
Because
I'm working on one over here called The Woman in the Mask.
Right.
There's such things.
Yeah. When Mike gets the $1 million studio movie, then they go to him and say, we'd like to do a sequel or a spinoff or whatever. That's what he's got.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yep.
But I think the thing is that the name is critical, and you shouldn't get the name is critical, but it also isn't important, because it changes. It can change in a heartbeat. Like if you sell it to a studio, and the studio suddenly says, we're not going to use the Man in the Mask name anymore. We're now just going to call it Jerry.
Yeah.
Like, well, they paid you for it, so
You're right.
all that sweat over the name that you created is lost.
Yeah.
Because it's now Jerry.
Yeah.
Right.
It's now Jerry.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because they want to market it too.
Yes,
Right.
that's right. Yeah.
And
they might be wrong,
Yeah.
right? In our minds, they might be wrong, but they're making the change because they think it's the best thing to do.
And because they have like 1,000 charts and graphs of market research that sort of prove their point, even if it fails. And so you can't argue with it. You've sold the IP to them, so if they want to call it Jerry, it's Jerry.
Yeah.
That's Jerry.
And just like the John Carter of Mars movie.
Oh man, I you know what? I like the movie, but it was horribly marketed.
It's a great adventure movie.
It's a great movie.
It's not, the thing is, it's not like a fantastic game-changing adventure movie. However, it is a great movie to just sit down and enjoy and be entertained and see some stuff that you didn't see in other movies.
Right. Yeah.
And that's
Disney rocketeered it.
Yes, they did. They put that in. Oh man, I'm so mad. And you might as well say that they Iron Gianted it too, because the great movies that deserve like a huger audience.
Yeah.
And I don't know why Rocketeer didn't succeed.
Oh my gosh! Yeah.
I look at that. To me, that movie set the tone for the I mean, if you look at that, watch it now, it's like, well, that's a Marvel movie.
I haven't seen it in a while.
You should. I mean, there's some stuff that's definitely of the time in which it was made. But it holds together like a Marvel movie. It holds together like the first Captain America movie.
Yeah,
easily.
Yeah, I need to watch it again.
Yeah.
The dynamic universe said you could also add a subtitle or spelling to Cat and M.
Yeah.
5, the Canine Capers.
Yeah,
you can change up the spelling to do something to differentiate your thing from that other thing.
Right. There's millions of ways around it, and that's part of the creativity process.
Yes, no, I agree. I think it's part of the fun. David Escudero says Rocketeer is brilliant. Dynamic Music says, and it's a difficult process, so usually you'd hire a lawyer to trademark for you. Yeah.
And we know a guy that would trademark stuff for us.
Yes.
And his cut isn't that bad for the legal fees, but the filing fee for the paperwork is intense.
Yes. Yeah. So what about let's shift gears a little bit. What about if you see somebody at Mike? If you go to the Lexington Comic Con and there is someone there who's got a Man in the Mask, he's done some Man in the Mask drawings and has selling prints. What do you do? How do you protect yourself there?
Well, the first thing I would do is go up to him and say, hey, you're kind of infringing on my stuff. And then secondly, since I know the people who run the con, I would go to them and I would complain. And I would say, and I would say, you guys know me and you know how long Man in the Mask has been around. You've got a guy on the floor selling stuff that it doesn't belong to him. And that's how I would handle it initially.
That's a great way.
But initially, who knows if it actually would do any good, because the guys there, I mean, and thinking about all the guys that are on the floor selling Spider-Man and Hulk and all these other things, you have a situation where, you're just kind of one of the many and you can take it any way. I mean, I've had actually a very weird situation. I've had a guy that's been a fan of Man in the Mask since the very beginning. He's a nice guy. I've had conversations with him. He's an animation guy. He's actually talked about animating a little short Man in the Mask just because.
That would be cool.
And about a year ago, he sent me something. It was his own interpretation of Man in the Mask, and he had gone, like movie posters, and he asked me if it was okay for him to show him, as long as he attributed that the creation was mine and that it was a fan thing. It was a fan thing. And when I looked at it, it was kind of like, well, I'm not entirely comfortable with it because this is a very gritty looking, and Man in the Mask certainly is not
Right.
a gritty story. And I see your point of view. I mean, you're looking at it from a Frank Miller, Alan Moore point of view, and this is you're putting your one thing on it. I said, okay. At the same time, I appreciate you. I appreciate being a fan. I appreciate that I was influential enough for you to want to do this. I'll let you show it once on your Facebook page.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't want it to go any further than that. I don't want it to, you to post it everywhere in your socials. And it does definitely, you have to make sure that you're attributing me, and then it's okay for me. But again, I told him, I said, you would have to understand that if you had created something and then I came to you and it's like, yeah, it's kind of in essence you, but at the same token, maybe it's got an element you don't like. And so you have to look at it from my point of view, because I don't want the confusion. I don't want people to think that I'm paying you to do a Man in the Mask story in this style, in this darker style. So, I'm allowing you, and I made a point to reshare it on mine to say, this is a fan interpretation.
Yeah.
This is not officially, I'm not doing this guy's book. He's not doing a book, more importantly. And I'm cool with this. But like I said, had he tried to do more, I would have had to put my foot down a little bit. But again, that's awesome, because if you're a cool guy interacting with the creator, this is sometimes what you get.
Yes. Yeah. I'll be right back. I'm gonna go grab something that I can show. Right. So it'll take me like 2 minutes. I'll be right back.
That's why I always had problems with Tom Mason's Broken Toy Story that I tried to do.
And like I said, I think that's the great thing about indie comics. If that's something that the mainstream will not allow you to do, because they certainly would not want to see a different interpretation of, say, Spider-Man that is, very grisly and
but there's also the risk that if his version of your creation got some traction, it could negatively impact the process by which your version would get traction. And I think that's
very much so. I mean, that was the stuff that goes through your head. It's like, well, people like his better than mine.
Well, there's that too, because we're all sort of insecure nerds.
We're very insecure nerds.
I had a guy approach me like 10 years ago because he wanted to do his version of Dinosaurs for Hire. And I said, I'm flattered, but it's my version of Dinosaurs for Hire. If you want to do 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 other dinosaur characters and do your own thing, that's great. I hope you do that. But these are mine.
That's right.
And I want, even if I put Cat and Mouse in my comic book, I still got to talk to Roland about it.
Yeah,
exactly.
And Roland has to okay how they're used. It's like not. It's the same way. The thing that I'm writing for you right now, it's like we had to get a guy's permission and have him look at the art and have him look at the story and look at the dialogue, and he gave suggestions.
Yeah.
For like, no, this is what it does, and so
because it's his thing.
It's his thing.
It's his thing, and you want to be faithful to it,
right? Yeah. Because if you're not going to be faithful to it, why would you want his thing?
Exactly. Yeah. So
did you find it?
I did. So I want to show you this. I want to get his name right. Last year, before I went to about 2 months before I went to Brick City Comic Con, which is coming up here in about a month, I got an email from a guy that says, "Hey, I'm a painter. I'd like your permission to do a painting of Cat and Mouse." And I'm like,
"Are they naked?"
No, well, that's what I asked. I said, "Well, can you tell me what you're wanting to do?" And so he explained things to me. He said he goes, "I just want to do a painting. I'm not making prints or anything like that." And so he ended up. So I said yes, and this is what he did.
Nice.
That's awesome.
So this fella's name is John Spangler. For those of you who are looking stuff up. He just said he loved the characters, and he loved the comic, and he wanted to do a painting in the way he does his paintings. He does videos. He's on Instagram and does a lot of stuff there. Get me off of here. And so I'm like, you go right ahead. But in my opinion, he did it the right way. He came in and he asked me, He said, "Hey, here's what I want to do. Do you care?" And I'm like, "You know what? No, you go right ahead." Well, as it ends up, he didn't sell this at the show. So after the show was over, he gave it to me. I was like, "Oh, wow." It's like, dude, you really don't have to do that. He goes, "No, I want to do that." I'm like, "Okay, well,
That's awesome.
I'll gladly take it. Thank you." So yeah, I know that Brian Polito, who a lot of you guys, a lot of comic book folks know. I've seen Brian Polito go to someone at an artist alley and tell them to remove all their Lady
Death.
Thank you, Lady Death stuff, because they didn't ask him for permission.
Right.
And they had this, they're selling these prints and all that kind of stuff. He's like, you didn't ask me for permission for that.
And that's the thing too, because the guys doing Spider-Man and Batman prints or whatever, that's a big corporation's problem. That's Time Warner, Discovery, and that's Disney, Marvel, whatever.
Yeah.
But if it's me, or Mike, or Polito, or you, Roland, we're little guys compared,
yes.
and you're basically the $20 you're taking out of my pocket,
right? Yeah,
is that hurts.
Yes,
and so I would appreciate it if you wouldn't do it.
Polito is totally right. Polito's. I'm right on with him. I think he has to protect the thing that he made, because as you said earlier, Tom, there's no copyright police.
No.
There's no one walking around going, "Aha, you broke the copyright. You're going to copyright jail." It doesn't exist. So you have to protect your own thing.
And also there's a thing that if you don't enforce your own copyright and you let other people abuse it like this, you could lose it. And if you end up having to go to court for whatever reason, people will just say, "Well, you're letting other people use these characters for posters and prints at shows. You've given up your copyright. You've abdicated. So you have to protect every time you see it used like that."
Yeah, which is one of the big questions that comes up sometimes regarding Marvel and DC is they don't seem to have an interest in protecting their copyrights at the current time.
Well, I think because they both have that gaggle of lawyers, and they have legal money set aside for these kinds of things, so it's not a problem. It's part of the budget.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of them look at it as advertising too. It's free advertising.
Right.
This guy's selling a print, sure, but he's advertising my character.
I disagree with that, Mike. I get that that's the argument, but having talked to a couple of editors at DC, they don't like that. Because now let me back up one step and say I'm specifically talking about people who have never done a Marvel or DC book, right?
Right,
now,
that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
They do not view that as advertising, and the reason they don't is because they have no control over it. Right? It's like I've had editors tell me that. It's like, yeah, we don't like that, but what are we going to do? We can't go to every single show and say you stop. They just there's too many shows. They don't have they don't have the manpower or the resources for it. But they do not like that because you might, for instance, draw Superman in a way that they don't approve of.
Right.
But it's Superman and you've drawn it and you're selling it. Well, they from these editors' perspective, they have lost their ability to control their property if they don't do it. So I hear that all the time. Oh no, it's just free advertising for the corporations.
I think it's a gray area if the creator is working currently at Marvel or DC, and it's the character for the book or the project that they're working on. I think that's
right.
That.
Well, if Todd McFarlane's selling a Spider-Man print, then that's different.
Well, but the creator, anybody who's ever worked on a book on DC, okay, for an example, I learned this through another creator that came to the con. He actually showed me the paperwork that he carries around with him that allows him to sell DC-related prints because he worked at DC. And actually, they have an allotment they have to record. Now, does DC keep up with this allotment? No. Yeah. But the honest ones do. And so he's allowed, there's two things he has to put on it. He has to put copyright DC Comics and not author. I mean, it's not an official merchandise. That's the two things that DC. See, that was the thing that, now Marvel does the same thing, but Marvel actually gives them a Marvel logo in the corner. They'll, and they actually sometimes provide the prints to the
I've
creator.
heard that. Yeah.
Actually I have one up here on the wall, Kusami of Daredevil, and there's a Marvel logo in the corner. It says copyright Marvel Comics. But the DC paperwork, I read the paperwork, and they have an allotment so that he could make 20 copies of every illustration of, say, Superman or Batman or whatever. And he's completely legally able to do it. They're giving him permission to do those types of, So because he was a recognized creator at DC, despite what he did, he was an employee in a work for hire situation, and he's allowed to. So
that's a part of the IP thing too. Is that if you're working for Marvel or DC, and you're a writer or an artist, and you create a new character for them, you've already signed over the IP to Marvel and DC because that's part of your contract. So you can't copyright that because that becomes their character. That's why, Eric Larson famously said like 30 years ago that he was saving the stuff that he created for his own comics because he wasn't going to give them to the corporation.
And you know what? I don't blame him.
I don't blame him either. It makes perfect sense because we've all seen what happens to people who create works for Marvel and DC that are original and how they don't get compensated. And, and until that changes, what's the point of creating an
right?
Starling got more money for KG Beast and Batman versus Superman than he got for every character he created in Guardians of the Galaxy.
Well, Len Wein created the just the fat detective in Batman, the Commissioner Gordon's buddy.
Bullock.
Yeah, and he got more money from Bullock than he ever got for Wolverine.
Yeah,
really, and because of his deal with DC. Because DC had a character interest agreement that Paul Levitz requested Len Wein sign, and Len Wein has told the story on mine long before he passed. He said, and I was like, it's just Harvey Bullock. It's like this, it's a fat slob detective, or whatever. And Paul Levitz was like, no, you need to sign it. And so, Wein signed it, and he got more money from that over time than he got from Wolverine.
Well, I know Perez before he passed as well. He was local to me here, and I used to see him at some of the smaller shows, and that's where I had the opportunity to talk to him. And he said for more than once that the royalty checks that he got from DC were very generous.
Yeah.
And he never told me dollars amount or anything like that, but he just said they were very generous, and he was not unhappy at all.
Right. And apparently I forget if we talked about this on the show or not, or maybe I just heard this from the source, but DC pays their creators very well for the video games. Like most of the DC talent gets more money from the character they have an interest in appearing in the DC video games than from the comics because it's that generous.
Yeah. Yeah. Joe Dixon said he gets nice royalties from Bane.
Yeah.
For the toys,
which, by the way, he should, because that's a minor character who became like a major character.
Yes. Yeah. So and that's the good part of it, right? That when they can treat you right like that.
Yeah. And did we cover everything?
Go ahead. Well, I've got the final thing that you sent me.
Okay, because the other thing about protecting your IP is what you do when you die. What happens to your IP? Yeah. And a lot of people don't talk about that. A lot of it is more like, well, my partner will take care of it, or my kids will take care of it, so whatever. It's like, well, maybe not. And so there's
well, and not only this is, are your kids going to know anything about it?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, right. My kids aren't going to know anything about it.
Right.
They know, hey, Dad wrote some comic books and it's pretty cool, and he's got way too many in his office.
Yeah. And we threw most of them out after he was dead. Right. Because what do we care? They're taking up room and they smell like old comics. And so
yeah.
Whereas to me, old comics are like an aphrodisiac. So
oh man.
Yes.
I understand that I'm inhaling old moldy newspaper.
I get
cancer,
it too.
But still,
who cares?
There's a whiff of opening up a box of old comics, which just like it takes me right back to being like 9-10 years old.
Oh
again.
yeah.
And I just like, okay, I got that old comic book feeling again.
Oh, I know. And the flashback, right? I can't not open a comic that you buy and you get out of the bag and
It's like I have no interest in vaping in any way. However,
No.
if they made a flavor called Old Comic Book, I would vape that.
Yeah.
So there's a creator, Neil Gaiman,
Yes.
who is obviously is troublesome these days. However, he did a great thing on his website where he created what's called a simple will. It's a one-page thing. It's about what you want to have happen to your trademarks and your copyrights for all of your stuff after you pass away. And separate from your furniture and your bank accounts and your other stuff, what happens to your intellectual property, what happens to your copyrights. And it's a very simple form. You can copy it out, give it to a lawyer, get it witnessed, and pop it in for almost, for the cost of that one lawyer visit. And if you just want to get it notarized, depending on the rules of your state, a notary is, $50.
Yeah.
And so,
oh heck, you can get them cheaper than that.
Yeah. So it's really, we know someone, Stacy Herring Saez, who became a notary, and it was $10.
Yeah.
And so, you can just keep this with your estate, and so what I've done with my own stuff is I have I adapted his form, and I created a trio of people to manage my trademarks and copyrights after I pass away. One is my nephew, because he's actually a finance guy.
Yeah.
And he's young. He's in his early 30s, so he's gonna live for a while. He can take care of it. And I appointed I appointed two experts who are friends of mine to sort of be his advisors to help him explain what these things are.
Right. Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah.
Now, it could still fall apart after I'm dead, and I won't care because I'm dead. But
right.
It's like my hand won't be coming out of the grave going, that's not what I wanted to have.
You didn't do it. Yeah.
That's right. Because although I would write that story.
Yeah, you're right.
Because now that I say it out loud, it kind of appeals to me. But I think that the intent is there. Yeah. And, a lot of it is that my intellectual property isn't worth anything. It's not worth anything until somebody wants to exercise the option.
Yeah.
But if somebody actually does, like you and me, Roland, we have stakes in the Ultraverse.
Yeah. Yep.
And for things that we created, not ownership, but a little piece of the pie if something happens.
Yep.
And so if 30 years from now, somebody exercises that piece of the pie and turns it into a hit movie, there's a little money trail that should flow back to me, which if I'm dead, would go to my heirs.
It should go to your state. Yeah, your state.
Even whether it's $1,000, $10,000, or $100,000, still free money, and it's better in my pocket than it is in somebody else's.
And here's the way I look at that. Even if it's $100,000, $10,000, $1,000, right? That's money that's owed to me. That's my money. It's not it's not your money that you just happen to keep. No. Right. I participated. This is something I've done. This is my money.
Right. And if you look at it as like a bank thing, it's like I invested in that property 30 years ago.
Yep.
And now that term has come due.
Right. Yeah.
That CD is due, and I want to collect my interest.
And think about it, right? So and not trying to put a damper on anything, but think about how many properties don't really get value until the creator has passed.
Yes.
So you don't want to create this cool thing, and it may not do anything during your lifetime, but 10 years after you're gone, someone finds it, they make a movie, and there's $1 billion. You don't want to not get your piece of the pie.
Well, and that's the thing too. Many of the Ultraverse properties that I co-created are now owned by Disney.
Yeah.
And Disney has a reputation for leaving things dormant for a long time and then reviving them.
Yep.
After a period of time. And there's a possibility. I mean, if nobody was interested in the Ultraverse and the Ultraverse had gone bankrupt and the properties had just died and gone into the public domain, so be it. However, they're owned by Disney.
Yeah.
And my piece of that Disney pie is viable. It's legally attached to me as it is to you and the other guys.
Yeah.
And so I think, I would be a terrible businessman
Yeah.
if I didn't do what other businessmen do.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Just protecting yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
But-
Disney may very well wait until we're gone,
Right.
but
But
it's still my piece of the pie.
and because the other thing is with the guy who is my nephew who's going to be in charge of my estate after I'm dead, he's also getting copies of my contracts that explicitly state what my percentage is. So I'm not just leaving him a pile of responsibilities. Right. It's like, here's the paper trail.
Right. Here it is. Yeah.
And so, because I think the thing is that, it's like, the Sherlock Holmes people, there have been like 100 Sherlock Holmes movies that have come out since everybody died.
Right.
If it had been protected properly, some of that money would have flowed back.
Right.
More generously to the estate.
Yeah.
And so, I view it as these are heirlooms. This is like giving my bad furniture to my children.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we've got a branding iron that is not worth a penny probably,
right?
But it's a branding iron that was my great grandfather's, my great, right? It's just a silly little M, but on the end of a poker stick, it's not worth anything. But I want to be able to pass that down. That's ours. That's mine. Intellectual property is no different, right? It's something that belongs to me that I want to be able to pass down.
Well, also, I think it's the story of the family business. This is the thing that my father created,
yes,
and passed down to us. This is his legacy. Just like, if my grandfather created an auto factory or my other grandfather created, a hardware store,
right?
It's like, I created a comic book business. This comic book business is now part of the family estate, and now it's down to you. If you screw it up, so be it. I'm dead.
That's right. I'm gone. David A. Scudera says, I'm leaving everything to Tom.
Well, I'm just going to give it to my nephew. So it's not.
Pops dropped in here. Pops says, evening, gents. And then he says, Chuck Dixon is a nice guy, too. And then he says, TMI, Tom.
Which part?
I don't remember which part that was. He also says, for Madness program, we usually do this at the top of the hour when he's here. For Madness programming, info, booking, sponsors, and sponsorship opportunities in our store, visit themeg.tv and reach out to Pops, and he will take care of you. All right, guys. Anything we left out? Anything we didn't cover about protecting your IP? Any other questions from anybody in the chat?
I think the key is that the government, U.S. government Copyright Office is your best friend.
Yeah.
And everything else, nothing can stop anybody from stealing your work. But two things are that nobody cares about your idea. Ideas are nothing. It's all the execution of the idea. And and that's what's really valuable. And that's the thing that you copyright. That's the thing you hold on to until somebody gives you a pile of money.
Yeah. And that's another thing. A lot of people think that, well, I've got an idea, I can copyright the idea. No. You cannot do that.
You have to take that idea and you have to execute that idea in a way that can be copyrightable.
Right. Yeah. Make something of your idea.
Right. You can't, because Spider-Man, a guy who's bitten by a spider and has spider powers, that's not Spider-Man.
Yeah.
I mean, that is kind of, but it isn't Spider-Man. Spider-Man is all that drama. It's all that Betty and Veronica over Mary Jane and Gwen Stacy. And it's all of the character interactions, and it's all of the villains and the storylines, and it's how many times Aunt May has to marry Doc Octopus. It's all of that.
Yeah.
That's Spider-Man.
Yeah. And it's true. You've all heard it before. Ideas are a dime a dozen. That is true. That is true.
And Mike, I hate to keep cutting you out, but you weren't in the rooms with us when Roland and I kept doing this kind of thing. Is that when we would pitch out ideas, we threw away 90% of everything because we didn't see how it could work. And so that's the thing. Ideas aren't anything.
Yeah. Dynamic Music says, because it impacts the actual artist on the titles, commissions is a big part of the established artist income. Yeah, that's right. Absolutely. If you got your title that you're doing, people want you to draw that, right? People want you to draw the thing that you've created, and commissions are going to be a big part of that.
Well, especially if your book has any traction.
Yeah. And you know, there's a lot of folks out there who just want to be able to support you as well, and that's an additional way to say, hey, I like your book, I bought it already. You know, I know it's going to take you some time to do the next book, which I will also buy, but how about I get a commission from you, right?
Right.
It's an additional.
Or if I'm cheap, I'll take a print.
That's right. I'll get a print. Yeah.
Because I think for an artist or an owner of the comic book business, being able to provide those different tiers, I think we lost Mike. Being able to provide those different tiers with different pricing is a way to sort of keep your audience in an expandable place. It's like, here's what I can do for people with money. Here's what I can do for people who are on a budget. Here's what I can do for whatever.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Mike is back.
Mike's back. Mike actually. Oh, he might be
disappeared.
He may be. Are you still having storms up your way? Or they pass through?
I think it's my computer.
Okay. All right. Well, guys, we are done unless you have something else you want to add.
No. Copyright your stuff.
Copyright your stuff. On Tuesday, when to make wordless panels. Oh, I gotta tune in for this one. Anyone who's had my class knows I am not a fan of a lot of wordless panels.
Oh, me neither, because they don't work.
They don't work.
No.
Go ahead.
It requires a level of technical skill that a lot of people don't possess.
Yes.
And a lot of readers don't understand either. So it's
yep.
No.
Don't do it. They too often become picture books at that point in time.
Yeah. The only person I know who could do silent comics is Sergio Aragones.
Oh, yeah.
And and he's a one of a kind master.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, when do wordless panels? This is Tuesday. The crew discusses how you can find the perfect moment to have silent panels in your comics. That is Tuesday. Join Tim, TK, and the crew Tuesday. Wednesday, the Whammers are going to have a trivia night. The Wham crew steals an idea from the other Silverline streams and offers up their own trivia night. We have had trivia night here ourselves. We haven't had one in a while. We may have to do another one. That is the Wednesday Wham. Next week, we are going to have a launch party. We're going to launch Cat and Mouse Vipers #1. And let me check here. Angelo has said he will be able to make it, and Jose has said he will be able to make it. So hopefully Roberta will be here as well. So the entire art team will be here, and we are going to have our. So you guys get prep all kind of questions for us. But we are going to have our launch party. We will launch our campaign. We'll probably have a 30-minute lead up to it, and then we'll launch a campaign at the bottom of the hour so we can watch about another 30 minutes of the campaign. Ooh. So that is next week. And Roberta says, I'll be there. Hey, Roberta. So we missed you tonight, Roberta. All right. Last chance, fellas. Anything you want to say? Any shows coming up for either of you?
I'll be at WonderCon.
WonderCon, that is 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
So I'll be actually reporting live. When I'm on the show 2 weeks from now, I'll be live from the con.
Nice. That'll be fun. Roberta said, "Hi, gang. Great show. Missed you too." All right. Well, you guys know what time. As where did he go here? Where is Hyper says? Don't forget to like and subscribe, kids. Until next week. Don't forget to make mine Silverline. Good night, everyone.
Silverline.
Click on the tube and feel the vibe. Every show you crave right here live. Heroes and villains clash in the night. Madness Comic Network sets it right. Scroll through the list, find what you need. Epic battle. travels in fast-paced speed, from capes to cosmic space delight. Tune in and watch your favorites ignite. On Facebook, share the thrill so grand. On X, the buzz across the land. Madness Comic Network all around. In every episode, joy is found. Uploads, they never end. Superheroes and their friends. Catch every twist and every turn. Madness Comic, you will yearn. Stay up to date with every twist. Madness Comic, don't miss a gist. From laughter to tears, every mood. Madness Comic sets the groove. Click that button and subscribe. Catch the wave and ride the tide. Join the fun, join the craze. Madness Comic brightens days. Hey! New uploads, they never end. Superheroes and their friends. Catch every twist and every turn. Madness Comic, you will yearn. Stay up to date with every twist. Madness Comic, don't miss a gist. From laughter to tears, every mood. Madness Comic sets the groove. Click that button and subscribe. Catch the wave and ride the tide. Join the fun, join the craze. Madness Comic brightens days.
Hi, I'm Greg Horn. Make mine Silverline.